All right, Shane, let's do your quarterback rankings. What do you have?
Okay.
Do 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 do.
let me
Let me
say a
pull
couple
up the
things
draft order too.
before I start. My list is definitely subject to change based off where these guys end up.
That's why we're doing this now.
That's why we're doing it now, and then we're going to do it again after the draft. Okay.
Stick to your guns, Shane. Don't be a coward.
No, I
don't
know.
put a caveat on your list.
Well, no, but the reason I say that is because where they end up does matter. I mean, let's be honest, right? Like if Mahomes hadn't ended up in Kansas City, would he really be as good as he is? Probably not.
No.
Or
Browns
whatever.
Jackson wouldn't have been that good.
Right. So that's why I have to say that, because it does matter, I feel like. So, anywho's, there's been a lot of conversation about the top 5 quarterbacks in this draft. Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. And, I think most people kind of think that Trevor is the number 1 and Zach is the number 2, but then there's kind of some debate about the 3 to 5 guys. So I looked at everything. I watched tape, good and bad, of them. I looked at their colleges, the kind of talent they have around them, the coaches they have, the conference they play in, all things that matter, that affect them. I looked at their stats, stuff that they've overcome as players.
Let me ask this question: How much did you factor in pro days?
Not a lot, if I'm being honest. I don't.
And why is that?
Because pro days are so isolated. They're such a bottle. Like they don't really.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
they don't really show you.
They don't. They don't affect how the player's going to play when there's a guy in their face. Like.
Yeah,
it does feel. I think the reason why I stopped watching pro days was because it felt mostly like a showcase. Like, here's the deep ball, here's this cut route and stuff. I watched Lawrence's pro day. I think everyone did, but other than that, I think you guys are right.
I just watched like 1 minute highlights of each of them because they popped up on Instagram or something, and I was like, okay, whatever. But anyways, so without further ado, this is my own opinion. Should I give you the list and then explain?
Just give the list.
Okay.
Go from. So how many quarterbacks in total?
Actually, do one at a time. Do one at a time. Actually, you know what? You should.
Yeah. So you're 5. You should go from 5
to 1.
Yeah.
And explain as you go.
And then also,
Shane,
while you do this as well, give me your best team fits for these guys as you go down the list as well, because I think that would be interesting.
Okay. Here I go. Number 5 for me is Mac Jones. And here's my thing with him. He has, of all 5 of these guys, he has the highest passer rating, which is surprising to some. However, look at the talent he had around him. Look at the receivers he had. Combine that with the great O-line he sat behind. And obviously Nick Saban is greatest college coach ever. You combine all of that, and it's, it'd be pretty hard to screw that up. Let's be real.
Also, Alabama does not put out good NFL quarterbacks.
Right. And on top of that, he's definitely the least athletic of all 5 of these guys. So, despite the fact that he has the highest passer rating of all of them, I just don't, I don't think that his skill set works in today's NFL. And if he went to a bad organization, he would really struggle, I think. So,
best team fits for him.
With that being, best team fit. The one that really comes to mind for me is New England, because he's a pocket guy. He's a lot kind of like Brady. He has very high football IQ, from what I understand. So I think being in a place like New England, he would probably work well. You know, I mean, I'm sure there are a couple others that would be good, but you know, that's the main one that jumps out to me.
San Francisco?
No.
No, because they're
No.
interested in him right now.
Yeah,
I would love for them to take him because I think that would be
but look at
terrible for them.
Well, the thing is, like, look at because if he does go to, like, here's the thing about New England. Now they have receivers, 2 good tight ends, and they still have Bill Belichick, great coach, whatever. And not to mention, he as a player fits well into their system. New England, in San Francisco, yeah, Kyle Shanahan is a great coach, obviously, but it's more of a West Coast scheme, and I don't know how well that works for him. I don't, you know, it's not to mention he, you know, for receivers, he has Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, who are, you know, they're decent, but they're not like amazing. You know,
They're slot guys.
It's not Devontae Smith, and you know what I mean. So yeah, for me, he's 5th, but I don't know. It seems like San Francisco's interested in him at 3. I don't know why, but you know, whatever.
Kyle Shanahan seems to believe he fits in that system, or seems to believe he can mold them into.
I think it's
system.
more John Lynch.
Interesting.
From what I'm hearing.
Interesting.
But you know, it could. Who knows? Because I mean, at the end of the day, John Lynch is the guy who gets the final say. So we'll see.
All right.
Yeah. Number 4 for me is Zach Wilson. Even though he is supposed to go number 2, I think he's the 4th best. And here's why. It's kind of the Mac Jones thing where he had so much around him his senior year, you know, or was he a senior or was he a junior? I don't know. This last year.
It was the junior year right here.
Okay, yeah. This last year, he had so much around him. And because if you look at his numbers before this year, he played, okay, let's see. I think it was in 2019 he played 9 games and he only threw like 12 touchdowns and 10 picks.
Yeah, it's 11 and 9.
11 and 9. Yeah. So, you know, and not to mention he was in a system, or not in a system. He was in a conference where he didn't have a whole lot of competition. You know, accompanied by this great team. I think it made him look a lot better than he actually is. And a lot of people were talking about his pro day and that one throw he made. I don't know if you saw it, but he's like kind of running backwards, and he like does an over the body throw, like 50 yards downfield. Sam Darnold has made that exact same throw in game. The guy that, you know, was on the Jets. So now they're wanting to replace Sam Darnold with.
I don't know if you can pinpoint it on one specific throw, but
I'm just saying.
I mean,
to me, Zach Wilson is he's basically a taller, skinnier Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but like, look at these teams that this man played. Like,
this is the 2020 game.
Troy, Louisiana Tech, Texas San Antonio, Texas State, Western Kentucky, Coastal Carolina. Like,
the only 2 good teams here are probably.
He lost to Coastal Carolina. Like,
yeah,
come on.
And he was aided by a great team.
Yeah,
you know,
like I don't think he's gonna be good.
No, I don't either. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to make the argument of weak opposition bringing a player down. I think it's fair to make that argument in the case of Zach Wilson, where they have a really good team around them. But if it's a case like someone else, I can't think of anyone at the moment, but where they have a bad team and they're going up against other bad teams, I don't think it's really fair to say, oh, well, their competition was so bad. It's like, okay, yeah, but look at what they had around them. You know what I mean? So, and that's where my argument for Trey Lance comes in, and why he, for me, is number 3, because even the biggest knock I think right now on Trey Lance is that he
played 1 game.
Right. He played
and sucked in
one
it.
game in 2020. He wasn't great, but he. I think we need to look at 2019 when he played 16 games, and he had a pretty consistent year, 28 touchdowns and no picks, which is great. Okay. In the pros, you love to see that kind of consistency. I think he is very athletically gifted. He is, in my opinion, the best runner of all three of these guys, even though Justin Fields is probably a little faster. But Trey Lance has just much bigger runs, and he's like running people over, and he's very strong. And then, I mean, yeah, the fact that he hasn't played much in the last year, it is a concern, to say the least. But I do think, I do think that in the right system, I could really see this guy being like a Josh Allen, where he maybe not as good as Allen, but when you look at Allen in college, he was not all that impressive, really. I mean, if you look at his numbers, Trey Lance, I think at least with him, we see this consistency. Like I said, with 28 picks, or sorry, not 28 picks. That'd be bad. 28 touchdowns and 0 picks. And if he can go to the right organization, I think he could really pop, because he did all that on a weak team, overcoming a lot. And so, not to mention he, from what I hear, is very nice, humble person. So that's also good for your quarterback.
Yeah. Let's go back to Zach Wilson really quick. What are your best team fits for Zach Wilson? And the Jets aren't on that list, correct?
Oh, Zach Wilson. I hadn't thought about all this, but
it's fine.
No, let's see. I think, this is. Let me come back to him.
All right, we'll come back to him at the end.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have some for Trey Lance in your head, though.
Yeah, I think San Francisco would be great for him.
Mm-hmm. Washington has some interest in him as well.
I think Washington would also be really good. I think Trey Lance needs to go to a place where he can just be a game manager, which would be, San Francisco, Washington, Chicago could be good. I think I would have said Carolina, but that's off the table now. Although I guess, I don't know.
It's not entirely off the table.
Yeah. It's less likely than it was, I should say. Oh, what I think would be good for Zach Wilson is Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. How does Atlanta fit in with Smith's coaching staff?
Because, well, the thing with Atlanta that I think works for Zach Wilson is, the big appeal for Wilson is that he just has, he's got this big cannon of an arm, and he's just this big explosive player, and that's what they do. That's what Atlanta does. They that's the one thing in the last 3 years that they've consistently done well, is going deep and passing and whatever, which I don't think they should move off of Matt Ryan. Might be a hot take, but I mean, let's just be honest. He's had the most, he's been in top 5 for passing yards and passing touchdowns in the last 3 years, I'm pretty sure. So I don't know. I mean,
how do you think with Robert Smith and that new coaching staff, that Tennessee coaching staff that was very used to that Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry kind of style, they're seeming to bring that over, except they don't have like a Gurley now. I think Gurley's not with them. I'm not exactly sure, but how do you think that style changes for Matt Ryan and also for Zach Wilson if he were to go there? Or excuse me, yeah.
Well, I think it has to change regardless. I mean, one of them has to, because the Tennessee is as you guys know, it's a very run heavy power run team. And as you said, Atlanta just isn't cut out for that right now. They're quite the opposite. They pass deep a lot. And so, coach comes in there. I think he has to adapt to what they have, to all the 11 guys that they already have there, instead of making them all change and say, no, you're going to do what I want. Eventually, sure, he can, in the next few years, he can draft and manipulate free agency and then start to implement more of what he wants to do. But I think as of right now, when you're just starting out there, you kind of have to cater to what the team is, So I don't know. I mean, it's it'll be interesting. I think it's a weird hire. I'll be honest.
I liked it a lot. Because at least you got a coach there with some experience, especially building a quarterback. I know Tannehill's different than Tannehill, but that has to cause for some benefit, I think.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's not a bad hire. I just think it's weird bait for all the reasons I just listed. But yeah. Anyway,
who's next?
Next for me, number 2. This is the hot take here. Trevor Lawrence for me is number 2. For most people, most people would say he is a once in a generation talent, best quarterback prospect in the draft since Andrew Luck. Yeah, I think that's a bunch of noise. I don't. I mean, yeah, he's good. I don't think he's that amazing. I mean, honestly, when I look at him, I see a taller Joe Burrow. Really?
Is that a bad thing though?
No, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but does that tell you he's going to be he's the greatest quarterback prospect in 8 years? No, probably not. It certainly wouldn't for me. I think that my thing with Lawrence is that, I think he's gonna struggle his first, or not even struggle, but his first year or two, it's gonna be kind of like a Joe Burrow situation where he's gonna be fine, but there's a lot of new in Jacksonville, new coach, new everything, new quarterback, whatever, and so all of them coming together, and it's not even like it's a new NFL. It's a brand new NFL coach. Sure, Urban Meyer had great success in college, obviously, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gonna just jump into the pros and be great. I mean, look at Nick Saban, right? Greatest college coach, goes to the NFL, he kind of sucks. So
Miami, he needed Drew Brees in hindsight, by the way.
Yeah, but yeah, no. So I don't think that. I mean, Urban Meyer, it's anybody's guess how good he'll be in the pros. I don't know. But regardless, I think it'll take a year or two for things to really fully click. I mean, hell, it took Brady and Bruce Arians, who are 2 of the best in the pros at their jobs. It took them 3 months till Thanksgiving to finally click. So they've been doing stuff in the pros for 20 years. So, not to mention they also already kind of had a super team there. So yeah, I think he'll kind of struggle, honestly, in the first year or two. But then, he'll probably find his footing, and I think he'll kind of be a guy that sort of takes him to like the wild card divisional round and then just kind of fizzles out after that. And, the thing for me is when you look at all the great quarterbacks in the NFL, they do most everything really well. But then there's one thing in particular that they do super well. That's just great. Trevor Lawrence, for me, doesn't have that.
Is it okay that he's balanced? Because I think that's part of his appeal to a team like Jacksonville and why he's kind of still consider him the best prospect since Andrew Luck. I think it's partially because he's kind of great at everything. He doesn't have a major fatal flaw, but that could be a problem. You're right. That could be a problem because even with a guy like Josh Allen, he had a lot of flaws coming out and for the first couple of years, and look what happened with him. There's some sort of natural progression that he may not have. But he's kind of greater good at everything coming out.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, he has, I think he has incredible accuracy. In my opinion, the best of these 5 guys. These 5 guys, burgers and fries. But I'm sorry. No. But it's for me. I think a lot of it is I think he makes a lot of, despite having good accuracy and pretty good arm strength, not amazing, but pretty good. And, pretty good mobility, not amazing, but pretty good. I think like one thing that really does hold him back though, is I don't like a lot of his decision-making. I'll be real with you. I think he makes some bad reads on certain passes. That's one thing that I noticed with his tape is he makes a lot of ill-advised throws that in the NFL are probably going to be picked, or he'll get scolded by Urban Meyer or something. And that is something that can be improved in the pros. We saw it with Josh Allen.
It took him till year 3 to do it.
Exactly. You know what I mean? That's why I'm hesitant to say, yeah, he is the best quarterback draft prospect right now. You know what I mean? So, or since Andrew Luck, whatever. Also something interesting, of all 5 of these guys, right? I'm not going to, if you just look at their stats from last year, and for Trey Lance, we'll say 2019, since that's when he actually played his season. So if you look at all their stats last year, he had the lowest passer rating of all these guys.
Is that due to competition at some level?
Not that that means everything, but it is interesting to think about. And quite frankly, it's honestly not even close. So, there's that.
Brandon, what are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence? How do you view him in this draft class?
I think Trevor Lawrence will either be the greatest quarterback since Tom Brady, or he will fizzle out hard.
So you don't have a middle ground for him. You're like, it's either up or completely down.
I think he is the middle ground.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I just don't usually predict quarterbacks that do really well in college to be amazing in the pros. And I'm not crazy to think this because there is actual physical data. If you look at most quarterbacks who do really well in the pros, they were like the pretty good, but didn't win championships. Like Roethlisberger and Brady Brady's just an anomaly, really.
As a 6th rounder, we're talking about guys going out in the first round. You just build up the historics and say like this is not something that historically, and that's why it's so hard to scout. That's why it's so hard to scout too.
Like first rounders are usually guys who are good, but also quarterbacks taken first in the draft don't have a good history of being God tier,
Yeah. There's only a few exceptions, like the Mannings, which, I mean, Eli wasn't even that amazing, let's be real.
Was he taken first in the draft? No.
Jamarcus Russell?
Jamarcus Russell. Mannings weren't taken first was Peyton first?
Peyton was
They
first.
both were.
Really?
That's right. Eli was first and he got traded third.
Yeah.
Well,
that's right.
Peyton.
Yeah,
but again, but that's another example. Like
Matt Stafford.
Peyton was not amazing in college.
Matt Ryan.
He was he was good. He was.
I believe so.
Peyton was good in college.
I can look.
Eli was good in college, but they weren't like winning championships.
Eli was at Ole Miss. Peyton was at Tennessee.
Yeah, but they weren't out here like winning championships though.
Right.
Well, yeah, because I mean, think about like you're right, Brandon, because think about it. I mean, in the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years,
Matt Ryan was drafted 3rd overall. My bad.
Yeah,
go ahead,
3rd,
Shane.
okay. But yeah, I mean, like think about all the great quarterbacks in the NFL from the last 15, 20 years. You have it's never like the guys who go to these great schools where they have everything, they have the great receivers and the great help all around them, and they're winning the championships, and they're they get picked in the first round and everything's great. The only guy who has succeeded in that situation that I can think of is Deshaun Watson and maybe Justin Herbert, if you consider his college experience.
No, not Oregon.
I would argue Joe Burrow.
I would argue Joe Burrow's probably in recent years.
He's looking like he's going to be
right. That's the other one. That's
from the limited amount we saw him last year. He looks like he's going to be someone, and like that's my thing, Shane. Like that's why my argument has always been: look for the quarterback who has to do it himself. Look for the guy who has to show that he is the dominant quarterback, because the quarterback position is the one position that you have to be good. You have to be dominant. You have to do it yourself. You can't like the quarterbacks who get it done themselves.
Or you have to be able to.
They're the ones who have to be able to show that they can get it done themselves. And frankly, I think that's what Pete and John saw in Russell when like they saw that he's a guy who could get it done himself. And honestly, I'd rather a guy that's why I believe in the quarterbacks who are taken like farther down the line in the draft, because they're the ones who are the ones who get kind of overlooked because they're not the ones who shine, quote unquote, in college.
Even Mahomes as far back as 10. I mean, 10's not even that far, but like we weren't expecting him to go 10. They were expecting him to go like 15.
And I mean, it's not like, at Texas Tech, it's not like they were a great team. They went like 6-6 his senior year.
And it's the Big 12.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's well, okay. There's another one too that could maybe be argued at Baker. Maybe.
Are we even that sold on Baker right now?
I'm not.
I mean, that's but
also
thing.
Baker had like.
So then you have to put Kyler in that situation then too. Then you have to say Kyler, but even that, like it's Oklahoma, it's like an offensive juggernaut. It doesn't.
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah, true.
I mean, and it's interesting because so many people kind of have scoffed at my opinion of like are always like, oh, like they have to be amazing if they're getting drafted first or second. I'm like, no.
Just not historically. I think you're right from a historical perspective.
I mean, look at the historical, and it's like it's just such a logical perspective to have, because who's going to be the best in college? I mean, who's going to be best in the NFL? The ones who have to fight for themselves in college, the ones who have to show that they're actually good to get drafted.
So who is that player for you in this quarterback class? Honestly, it a guy like Lance?
It would probably be a guy. I mean, logically, it would be a guy like Lance. It might be a guy like out of all 5 of them, it would probably be a guy like Lance, or be a guy, as much as I don't like him, from my logic, it would have to be what's his name?
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Even though I don't believe that he will be amazing, I think he will benefit because he will be farther down the line. And I don't think he'll go to the shittier team. I think
he'll probably go 2, but
he'll go 2, but luckily he won't go to Jacksonville, like
he's going to the Jets though. So yeah, I don't know. So maybe Lance fits this description.
That's better. One of the unfortunate things though, because like usually that's also one of the factors is like you see the guys who go to the shitty teams at the top, they don't really get to develop. But if you go somewhere in the middle of the draft, you end up like getting beneficial. Like think about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was someone who went to a random ass school, but he was good.
Duke.
He wasn't that great at Duke, though. He had like a 60 passer rating.
But he showed that he had the pieces. Like, unlike
he was overdrafted. I still think he was overdrafted.
No, he wasn't.
He went third.
He's better than people give him credit for, but
I think he is. But
we'll see this year. This year's a big year for him with
I don't know. I really don't. I think I kind of have a feeling that Fields might be a situation where Fields becomes the steal of the draft, where like
Shane, is Fields number 1?
He is number 1 for me.
Justin Fields. Go ahead, finish your point, Brandon.
I think he's going to be the steal of the draft. I think people are going to sleep on him. I think he's going to end up with the historical he's not. I mean, he's already getting the historical like racial he's not a hard enough worker slapped on him. Which I don't, me, I don't normally like to bring in like the whole like make it like a race thing, but like it's a race thing. Let's be honest here. It's the thing that's slapped on every black quarterback. It's like, he's not a hard enough worker. He doesn't like put in enough effort. Yada yada yada.
Yet most of our quarterbacks in the NFL are African American quarterbacks.
But here's
an awesome part of the league, by the way.
I would take Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence. Just.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that idea either. I don't hate that idea because I actually loved him at Ohio State.
I think the reason, and here's the reason, because he's going to go to Jacksonville, and because I think Jacksonville needs a quarterback who can move and throw. And I think Trevor Lawrence, frankly, can't really move as well, in my opinion.
He can still move, but definitely not as well as Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields is the fastest of these guys. He runs a 4.4, which is insane for a quarterback. And I think he has the best arm too. I just, in terms of arm strength, accuracy, I really like what he does.
So accuracy for you is Lawrence, but you like his speed and the arm of Fields better.
Yeah, I think so. And just his overall, at least from the tape I watched, just his overall, ability to, if something breaks down, to improvise and to make a play happen, and he is a lot. At least from what I've seen, he's much more the kind of guy to put the team on his back and drive them down the field to win a game in the fourth quarter. Whereas Lawrence, I don't really feel that way. I mean, the guy gets to the playoffs both years and he kind of chokes. Granted, he went up against LSU, which that team was, just godly. They were insane. And then Ohio State with the man Justin Fields. So it's not like he had easy competition by any means. But still, that's, you're going to be playing guys, you're going to be playing defenses that are, really good like that in the pros, especially nowadays. Offensive lines are getting worse and defensive lines are getting faster,
and better and stronger. Yeah.
Right. And so you got to be able to run like Justin, and you got to be able to improvise and make stuff happen on the fly, which he can do more than I think Trevor can. The one downside for me with Justin Fields is that he is from a big power school like Ohio State or, like an Alabama that doesn't normally have, great quarterbacks coming out of it. But I think it's different with him just because he is just such a naturally gifted athlete and thrower of the ball. I think he's, just when I watch him, I think he's much different than the past Ohio State quarterbacks like, Dwayne Haskins or JT Barrett or
JT. I forgot about him. He's on
whoever
a
the hell
exactly.
They have,
you forgot about him. Exactly.
He's on a future deal right now.
So, yeah. However, this is my final point about all this. With the whole, they could move up after the draft or whatever. The guy that I think that is most true for is Trey Lance. Because if he goes to the right system, I seriously think that guy could go to 2, maybe even 1 of all these guys. I know it's crazy, but it just has to do with the whole thing of overcoming a bad program, and playing well and being as.
I mean, he's the best D2 program, but it's just the fact that it's a D2 program at North Dakota.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the fact that he was so consistent. I mean, look, Carson Wentz went there and he came out to the NFL and he did pretty good. Or, well, he still could, maybe. I don't know, with Frank Reich. We'll see. But, for his first year before everything went to hell, he was showing some good signs.
MVP year, bro?
Yeah,
still
exactly.
have him MVP.
And I mean, to be fair, I think Trey Lance was better in his year as a starter at North Dakota State than Carson Wentz was. So, we'll see. I mean, I think it seems like, I mean, Lawrence is obviously going 1 to Jacksonville, and Zach Wilson, it seems like, is going 2 to the Jets. And it's a giant guessing game as to who San Francisco is going to take. I mean, it
looks like Mac Jones.
It sounds like Mac Jones.
But Fields has another pro day this week that you're going to see the Niners be very prominent in.
That's true.
I believe it's this week, correct? Or next week, whatever.
Sometime soon. I don't know. But anyways, and then 4th, apparently Atlanta is interested in maybe trading that.
They will trade that. They will move that
to Denver, maybe.
Denver could be fun for Trey Lance. I've heard rumors about that.
Then they get Trey Lance or else Justin Fields. I don't know. Because then if they pass on him, then where does Justin Fields go? Like, I would say Detroit, but they have Goff on that stupid deal for.
They're confident in Goff, apparently, which I don't like, but they are.
So that's probably not happening. And then after that, New England.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Trey or Justin Fields in New England. Yeah, that'd be. Or Trey Lance, whoever they don't pick.
I feel like so here's my problem with Fields. It's not even a problem with him. It's a problem with the media coverage of Fields and sort of the prospect coverage, if you will. So think back to like national championship time, right? We're watching Fields play, and we're all like really impressed with how he's playing. I mean, we've been impressed the whole year with him at Ohio State. Sure. And he starts to really creep up to that Trevor Lawrence. It really felt like a 1A, 1B thing for me at that point. Then I don't know if this is a pro day thing, no combine thing.
He just started slipping and slipping and slipping.
But there was no reason why. I didn't see
it's weird.
Why. Because I'm sure you didn't see anything on tape. I mean, considering you're raving about it, I'm sure you didn't see anything on tape that would make him kind of fall like that. I wonder if it's the pro day thing. I wonder if because teams didn't see that first pro day, now he's doing a second one. That might be why, for a draft stock purpose. But also, I think part of it. But I think part of it is no NFL combine because are you
talking about Fields? I'm
talking about Fields because
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why right now. It's because of the first. It's literally because of the fact that teams have gotten word that apparently some people are saying that he doesn't put in as much effort, and he's not like, it's literally what I just said.
Yeah, he's
being profiled, and it is not good, and he's gonna slip. And honestly, it's probably gonna be better for him because if he falls to the bottom of the 5, he's not gonna go to some crappy team like Jacksonville or the Jets, and he can go to a better team like, I don't know, Atlanta.
Or New England.
Here's my thing, though.
Imagine if he goes to New England. That actually might be great for him.
That would be great.
He'd be like, cool.
It'd be fun to watch him in New England, but I want to really quickly finish this point because so let's look at this. If it was a regular year, right? Regular calendar year, we would have had the title game. Let's say everything with the title game stayed the same in some respect. Obviously, whatever with not playing games, whatever. Let's just say this kind of all stayed the same. Then in 2 weeks, what would have been like February 16th around, we would have had the combine. You know what would have been the top story at the combine? Trevor Lawrence versus Justin Fields. That would have been the story. And then from there, we would have had the pro days. They both would have had good pro days. And I imagine Fields would have went too. I'm not even kidding. That's how I imagine it working. I think part of it was the fact that it was a bunch of hoopla in February where we didn't have a combine or we had some makeshift ones. And then we had these pro days. And I think the pro days, the wonky schedule made him fall for some reason. That's sort of how I felt it was, because I looked at him and I still thought, dude, like we had this conversation that he probably could have been better than Fields. I thought he was 1A, 1B before or after that game in February. Do you get what I'm saying?
Or scouts just took more interest in these other guys
potentially
as time went along. I don't know. I mean, it's, you could both be right. Who really knows? I mean, yeah, it is strange how all of a sudden he's like probably the 5th prospect at this point of all these guys in terms of draft order. So I don't know.
How much do you think no combine affected the scouting and affected?
Well, I don't know if it did, because the combine wouldn't have even happened yet. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm saying, well,
or no, I would have. But
let's say we would have had the combine in February. How would it have changed if for these guys and a bunch of these random pro days scattered all over the country?
I don't think a ton, because I mean they still are having pro days, so they've been able to compare all the different pro days already. You know what I mean?
Right, but having all these guys in one roof in Indianapolis instead of a bunch of pro days.
No, I don't know. I mean, it is something interesting to ponder.
Brandon, your thoughts on that? Like, what if we had an actual combine this year? Would it have changed it at all?
It's possible. I don't know. I still think that it would have eventually, well, it probably would have changed things, because they would have seen that the whole argument about him being lazy wasn't real. So
yeah, I really think what would have happened is that story would have been Fields and Trevor Lawrence at that combine, and then it would have changed things. Like, I firmly believe that's what happened, because I just can't see any other reason why Fields wouldn't be 2 right now. But we know that Zach Wilson's going to go there. So, yeah.
I read something interesting the other day.
Go ahead.
It said somebody was apparently there are rumors that Trevor Lawrence is maybe not so interested in going to Jacksonville.
I would imagine he shouldn't be.
Which is why he has been very active on social media, hyping up the other quarterbacks' pro days. Have you noticed that? Like, every time like Zach Wilson or Justin Fields or whoever it is, they do a pro day and he retweets it and he's like, "Oh, what a cannon this guy's got! Oh yeah, geez."
So it's not him just hyping up his fellow prospects.
I don't know. It's that was more just like a theory that somebody had, but I was like, that's an interesting thought, actually.